try to direct it to you. Just want to remind you that this isn't we're not going to change our management system at this meeting. The governor's not going to step in and micromanage how we're doing this. This is an opportunity for you to tell him how this is affecting you. And I hope he might be able to address how the state could help us over the winter, because I'm frankly in the hole about $20,000 right now, and it doesn't look like I'm going to climb out of it. And I think a lot of people are as bad or worse than I am. The processing industry is struggling, and so please be civil. I would prefer questions to statements. Let's maximize our opportunity to talk with the governor and hear some answers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stand over here, because I don't like to talk and not be able to see who I'm talking to. Whatnot. So, well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. I am not here to make a speech. I'm here to listen. I was advised by many that you don't want to go to this meeting. And I said, no, I do want to go to this meeting. When there's a problem, and people are hurting, that's what I do as a governor. That's my job, and so that's why I'm here. I walked the beaches before when I was running, and I said I'd show up. And I guess I'm here to show up and to listen. But you know, last week I was visited by a group from Chignik. Chignik has not had a commercial opening all year, and they. I'll never forget the things they said. One of them said, "We've lost hope. We have lost hope. We are not going to subsistence fish. We have lost hope." And the commissioner was there. I expected when they got done talking, we had a very good discussion in my cabinet room. And the commissioner said, all I would add to what they have said is an exclamation point. He said, they're right. It is a disaster. It's a crisis. We talked about what can we do, and I guess that's really the point of today, quite honestly, is to find out, I can't change history, we can impact the future, and the future yet this year. And so we're here to listen about what can be done. I'm not a fan of managing fish from the third floor. When I ran, I said that I was critical of those that did. I said, you know, people with the boots in the water, they need to be making these kinds of decisions, not people on the third floor in Juneau or on the 17th floor in Anchorage. So today I stopped by, as I typically do. I stopped by Fish and Game and thank them. I thank each one of them for what they do and where they do it. And some have been there for 30 years, and I think we're fortunate to have who we have. I think the most important part of what we do is not just about science. We need to hear from people whose livelihoods are impacted from it. Everybody's here because of the crisis that we're in on fishing here. If there's a way that we can help resolve that or help lighten that burden, we are. I know in Chignik there's some things we can do with absolutely not a single commercial opener. Some things we can do on boat loans and those kinds of things that are involved with the state. So we're here to listen. And I'm going to have Commissioner Cotten answer a few questions, and however that's going to play out. I'm not the fish expert. I'm absolutely not. But that doesn't mean I don't show up. And so that's why I'm here. I'm here to hear and listen, and be able to find out where we can go from here as far as what can yet be salvaged this year on a very, very difficult fishery. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Cotten to say a few words.
Thank you, Governor, and we all know that there's limited time here, so I don't have a lot to say, but throughout the state this year, we've been to more than one meeting like this where people have had a disappointing year. You mentioned Chignik, Southeast Alaska, the Pacific Salmon Treaty, Copper River. It's not been a great year in Alaska for fisheries, and Kenai is no exception. So we had a little bit of a chance this afternoon to talk with Pat Shields and Dave Martin, and we actually could explore some additional ideas, and we'd be happy to hear what ideas people have today. We are required to be focused on making sure we make escapement goals, and it's difficult and we will not ignore economic difficulties, but it's a balancing act there that's very difficult to deal with at times. But primary goal is to ensure that we have a sustainable fishery, and I think you all appreciate that. So I'll quit now, Andy and Dave, and
Okay, so let's open up the questions. Why don't you keep the mic there? And we've got a mic here. Does anybody have a question? Please raise your hand and we'll send the microphone out. Okay, there's a question back there. And state your name and what your fishery is.
My name is Tim Cohen. I'm a drifter. Been here for 50 years. Never thought I'd say that. I have a request of the governor and the governor's office. I would like to see this industry receive some help deflecting the political fallout that we are going to get, most definitely, as a result, in my opinion, unwarranted closure of the dip net fishery. They're not catching that many fish. They aren't going to make a huge number significant difference, or difference in the numbers, as far as the escapement goals. But we will take a huge hit. And I would like the office and the governor to help us with that. The second thing I'd like to see, the Department of Fish and Game has the dubious task of trying to manage this fishery, and they don't have, in my opinion and from what I've heard, very accurate information from the dip net folks. They don't send their tickets back. And I would like to see an incentive that would encourage them to give the department proper or more accurate figures. For instance, if they don't send their ticket in, they don't get a sport fishing license or a dip net permit for 2 years. I think it would help. There's always going to be those that don't want to participate or that will lie. But the more information you receive, the closer you're going to get to an accurate position. And I'd like to see the governor's office help with that also. Thank you.
Paul Dale over here.
Hi, my wife and I have had a seafood company in Kenai for 25 years, Snug Harbor Seafood, so we know many people in the room here and have worked with them many years in a row. I don't have a question. I have a thank you. Number one, I've been involved in fishery politics for about as long as I've been involved in fishing. I think Governor Walker has been one of the more supportive governors our industry has had in the 25 years I've been in business. So I thank you for the support you've given this area and this industry, Governor. Secondly, you struck me as a hands-on governor. You have a commissioner that I know is a hands-on guy. And because you're hands-on and can do things with information that we don't always get a chance to impart to people at your level of government, I have some observations. And one is regarding sustainability, Sam. We nearly ran out a fish and game manager here 25 years ago when he thought 300,000 sockeye might be a good sustainable escapement goal. Most people in the industry thought it was too high. And we've had some of our very best returns over the decades on escapements that are a fraction of what we now consider minimum escapement goals. Tim Cohen made a good point on unnecessarily closing the dip net fishery. I happen to agree with him. I think when we make collective decisions, one of the criteria should be, let's not unnecessarily stir user groups. Let's really be thoughtful before we do it. I think when we weigh the fish saved, the doubtfulness of what a minimum escapement goal of 800,000 or 900,000 really is on the Kenai, we might have made a different decision. Well behind us, but the thinking of it, I think, is solid. Lastly, this isn't just the Kenai River. We have a river 10 miles south of here, the Kasilof, that when we talk about offshore in the ocean problems, well, it's interesting. It seems to really impact Kenai sockeye. Doesn't seem to really have impacted Kasilof sockeye. I think there are links in all of the items I mentioned. I know you're both smart enough to get it and understand it. Maybe collectively we can work together to address them. At any rate, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Can I just quickly say that this wouldn't be the only opportunity that you would have to work with the department on some of these issues, like better monitoring, better data. We live and die on data, so we want better data. So we would welcome ideas on how to improve our data collection on the PU fishery or on any of the fisheries. As far as the skate goes, I mean, that's as you well know, a process that we go through that probably isn't perfect. And again, we'd be happy to spend a lot of time with a symposium or a workshop with your groups to examine that question and perhaps get some better ideas. But we're very anxious to work with you on that.
Hi, my name is Casey. I'm a local Kenai resident. I fished Bristol Bay for 12 years, 10 years here, my own boat. Thank you, Governor Walker, for coming down. I have a quick question for Commissioner Cotten. It's been a couple years since we've had the North Test boat. Is it possible that we could add a couple weeks onto the South Test boat, especially with these runs in the lake last couple years? Have a better idea what might be coming in the river. Usually the river counter gets pulled at mile 19 about the middle of August. That lower test boat might help.
Well, it's certainly possible. We can always try to hide behind budget problems, but those are very important, again, data sets that we need. In fact, I know that I was just at the office today and there's been discussion about next year's contract for the test fishing, and I don't even know if you're thinking about next year or this year, but we can certainly take a look at that.
Alex Ladutkin, big fisherman for 20 years. It's thank you, government, to be here. And we're all concerned about 4 or 5 years about bank erosion in Kenai River. It's precious water. And why is a sport fisherman has no limit of speed? Speed limit for the sport fisherman. What I'm saying is, I talked to state trooper yesterday, and he said there is no restriction for the speed limit. So they make it huge waves and erosion of the bank rivers. And so that's what my concern is. But like I said, it's precious water. We need to be very careful with that.
My name is Steve Twinstrup. I've been around for quite a while there, almost as long as you have, Governor and Sam. But thank you for coming. You mentioned about the boat permits and the boat loan deferral. I had to be one of them back in the 90s, and the state did that for the fishermen. And the young guys coming into the fisheries in the last 10 years and having boat payments and the permit payments through the state would be a huge help for them. And so that's something the state can do now. But also what the state can do later is have the Department of Fish and Game go and examine the escapement level in the Kenai. Where ever since they made this 3-tiered escapement goal in the Kenai, the only one in the world, by the way, is right here in the Kenai River. And how is it better for the river to have over 4 million and have 1.1 to 1.3 million in the river? This return right now, this 5-year component that we're fishing right now, was 1.4 million, and there's no 5 years coming back. It might be part of the ocean survival, but also could be mainly on the fry leaving or the smoke leaving the river, really small, weak smoke, and they die off, and what do we have? This is not all together, I don't want to point fingers, but sometime in the future, we could start getting this escapement goal figured out. I said in 2016, there will never be another year like this. This is the worst. And all of a sudden, 17 hit. And now 18 hits. And it's by far the worst season I ever had in December. So it's it's all due from this extinguishable in the Kenai River. We're loving the Kenai to death. So the Board of Fish has to come up with a better plan for the management plan this year, and that has to happen very soon, or else this industry is going away. It might already be the straw on the camel's back right now that broke it, and this could be going away very soon. And I thought I'd get my daughter to fish my boat for me when I'm 80 years old, but I don't see that, Governor. And so there's a lot of people in this room that probably feel the same way, that the sustainable is the most important. I'd like to see the 850, 900,000 fish get in this river and have the sustainable, but I also believe that that's too much for this river. And so that being said, I appreciate you coming down here and listening to this here. So thank you.
Governor, I want to thank you again for coming to listen to us and to help us solve our problems as the governor. And I heard you talk about the different areas of the state with difficulties, crises in the fisheries. And you talked a lot about possibilities to relieve some of that problem as the state governor. So I guess I'd ask you now, what do you see, or what can be done to alleviate some of the problems that we have and our financial crisis that we're having? How are you dealing with it in the rest of the state? And even though the season isn't completed yet, it's apparent that that might be a strong possibility for an economic crisis here. So I'd appreciate if you had some thoughts on that, since you've already been through several meetings already.
Paul, as the commissioner said, we don't really use the fiscal situation as a reason that we can't do what we try to do. We have people that are doing the job of three people that quite honestly, but we don't use that as an excuse. We just don't. I don't think that's fair to you. I don't think it's fair to you, and it doesn't help you make your boat payments or meet your tax goals for every year. We've had a challenging time. There's no question about it. You play the hand you're dealt, and I got dealt kind of a tough hand. There's no question about it. But that doesn't mean you run from it. You stay in and play it. And we have closed 80% of the fiscal gap has been closed. We have a 20% gap at this point, and we think that might be closed if price of oil stay at $73 per year. Then we'll close that as well. So we've gone from a $3.7 billion hole right now to a 0.7, and I think we're going to close that. So that's critical that we get that done. But at the same time, we don't want to do it at the expense of your industry, your livelihood, your generational. I went to my first UCETA meeting some years ago, and I looked out and I saw people who looked a whole lot closer to my age than my son or grandson's ages, and that concerned me. The grain of the fleet is something that is serious, and you talked today about passing on to your daughter, and that's Valdez, that's a mom out of Valdez, and that's not forgotten my son. I hear about that I favor commercial because that's been my background. I favor all actions. I just do. I don't separate one out. Gear group out from another. I really don't. I can't do that, Governor. I really can't. So everybody is treated equally. The folks from Chignik, technically, they wanted a disaster declaration, and technically we can start the process, but we can't do it until the season's over. And of course, their response appropriately was the season is over. As far as we're concerned. So we've had that discussion about what can we do on the federal level. We did receive $56 million a while back for 2016. It takes 2 years to get the money in. What bank's going to say, oh yeah, bring it in whenever you can, so that it's a 2-year process until that. And I'm not saying that's what's going to work here, but we do have some tools in the toolbox we can use. We'll look at every single one of them that we can use, but also be mindful of the timing. Because if we tell you, we'll have a solution in 2 or 3 years, that doesn't do you any good for your what to do today, what to do now. As the commissioner said, there's, there may be some things, and that's part of the reason for us being here is to hear some suggestions, some ideas. What can be done? What are your thoughts about what can be done to yet salvage as much as can be salvaged out of this particular season? you know, I'm a strong believer that those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. I don't think the third floor in Juneau is where the solution is going to come from. It's going to come from here. It's going to come from those in this room that are closest to the problem, and that's why we're here to listen for that. You know, coming from Prince William Sound, we have a very different situation growing up over there. Than the pressure on Prince William Sound is very different, minuscule in comparison to the pressure on Cook Inlet. I learned about that from Doug Boston, riding around in his pickup truck. I learned more about the Cook Inlet fishery than I ever knew before, and I didn't forget it. And so I understand the generational. I went to his fish camp, and I met 2 and 3 generations of the Boston family. So this is critical. I mean, it is very serious, and it's not something that this isn't something that involves politics. It really shouldn't. Politics needs to be out of fish decisions, and that's one thing I said I would do, and that's why I won't stand here and make certain guarantees or promises of what I can do. Because I'm not a biologist. I'm not a fish expert. I do rely upon those that we have, and we have great ones here on the peninsula, and I do rely upon them, and that's why I stop by and thank them for what they do. But that doesn't mean your input isn't extremely valuable, because you're on the front lines, and so that's why we want to hear from processors, from others, and don't think that it has to be here right now and forever hold your peace. Not at all. Some have my phone number, and I like that. I like that someone will call me up on the fishing grounds and here's what's happening. Here's not what's happening. So we don't want this to be a one-time and end right now. I'm glad Representative Seaton is here. He does a tremendous job, on fisheries issues, because he understands it. He fishes. He runs a tender. He understands how this. If I'm getting that correct. So I really, in a strange way, I'm glad to see a packed room. I'm sorry it's a packed room, because it's only a packed room because of what's not happening here. But we can't control the number of fish come back to Alaska. Why is it in the NACNEC yesterday? Why is it that on the Nushagak they all went up one river in Bristol Bay? They're having a tremendous year, but they all went up one river. They didn't go up the NACNEC. They didn't go to the Nushagak. They went up the okay. There. So why do they go up one river? I don't know why they all go up one river. They do what they do, and we try to do the best we can to make it work for you that have been in this industry for a long time, and it's one that I admire, one that I have probably certainly more background in this than others, but it's a tough hand for all of us, but specifically for you, for those in this room, because you're the ones that have to try to figure out how to eke out a living. When you say you're upside down on this, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and so this year I did. When I got elected, someone wiser than me said, "You need to run from fish as fast as you can," and I chose not to. I said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay involved to the degree that I can be helpful." I did put together. I signed an administrative order earlier this year to create an advisory group for Cook Inlet, so that we have people Cook Inlet providing input collectively. We had 2 meetings. I don't know if many in this room are on it. I don't know if we'll have additional meetings. I hope we will. But I'm going to try everything possible to find a long-term solution for this, because you've got to make long-term decisions when you're buying gear and buying a boat and operating a fish processing plant. So, Paul, I don't know if that answers any of your question, but.
I think that, the best relief for us is being in the water. That's
Right.
Nobody here looks for a handout of relief, but it's going to be pretty stressful, I think, and mostly for the relief, for all the relief of the state. So I was just hoping that there was some kind of thought process you had, or assistance with the federal government, or something that would be more immediate. Obviously, that been through one of these disasters already, it takes a long time to do that. But we're looking at August, and last year many fish went into the Kenai. We had 24 pink salmon or a sockeye that are residual or something. Many people ask what happens if August 15th and fish are still moving. Is there a possibility? I mean, I don't know the answers to these, and I'm sure you don't either, but there's some of the concerns that we have. So I appreciate you can answer my question.
Okay, we've got 3 questions back here. Mike's over here, and I'm just trying to keep track, so we'll move the mic back there and over here. Okay, Mike's right here.
Hello, I don't know how to make this thing work. Do you have a button to push or you just talk? I can't hear it. Anyhow, I'm Chris Garcia. I've been at this industry for a little over 60 years. I drift beach fish, halibut fish, and herring fish. And I've watched the commercial fishermen get the short end of the stick since the 60s. And you say it's not political, and it shouldn't be. It should be biological. But what we've experienced in Cook Inlet is political, period. Yeah. What Dave brought up earlier, we can go right to Fish and Game's own record and see what escapements give us the best returns. There's absolutely no doubt about it, and probably everyone sitting in this room has a pretty good idea what those numbers are. The only reason for these enormous escapement goals is so the guided charter fleet can fish in a barrel. They want to take clients out, catch fish as fast as they can, go back and get some more clients and do it over and over again. Can't blame them, they're making a living, making a damn good living. But politically, they've been given the river, and it's been taken away from us. I do sincerely believe that is something you can do something about, because it's a simple change. Wipe this stupid 1.2 million number off and put it back to 300,000 or 700,000. And the other thing that I disagreed with a couple other speakers about is I'm very happy and pleased and feel wonderful that you're closing the dip net fishery. I just don't understand why it didn't close today. And I the reason I feel that way is when that dip net fishery was shoved down our throats, we were told it would only ever be initiated in an extreme year to curb over-escapement. Now it's become a fishery that takes over 1 million fish a year.
It's priority.
It's a priority fishery that takes over 1 million fish a year. Every one of those fish is before the counter, which controls us fishing.
Right on.
Our records show that it's got 260,000, and it could be that we're not getting the right numbers, as the gentleman back here suggested. And to help us figure out how to do a better job there, we're anxious to get ideas. Again, we rely heavily on data. But the management plan does not prescribe how to decide when to close that fishery, under which circumstances. It's a different management directive from the board. Next April is the deadline for proposals to the fish board for the next Cook Inlet cycle. I'd be surprised if we didn't see some proposals to add to the management plan for dealing with that fishery under these kind of circumstances. It was left to us this year. It was a difficult decision to make at all, and I had people telling me that I should close it, other people saying don't close it, because that'll prevent your ability to put the commercial guys back in the water. We finally did close it just for the 2 days. We also restricted the bag limits on sport fish. We think that those are going to contribute to our ability to achieve the 700,000 sustainable escapement goal, and it's close. We may not achieve that. But we think that those contributions will help. So again, I knew I was going to talk to John about this earlier. I knew we were going to have to address that, and it was not an easy decision. And perhaps there are some better ways to address it through input to the board and the management plan.
Okay, now hold on. We only have 30 minutes. You've had a shot.
Well, he rebutted something I said. Okay, I want to find out where he gets his numbers.
We're here to listen. Go ahead.
My name is Nick Sanoff, over about 10 years of drifting.
And I just have two questions. One, you said to get the right boots on the ground. When most of the boots from the state of Alaska are coming here to DIPNet, why isn't there more boots on the ground to police them when you guys over-police us? And then two, when you said earlier, well, we just want to give an equal opportunity for everybody to catch them, then how come you guys are closing us down and giving them more of an equal opportunity? We should have an equal opportunity, so we all get the fish or nobody gets the fish. You know, don't favor one group over the other, because that's what it seems like. You're favoring them over us, and then that just pits us against them, and it's just a giant cycle, and you guys can just play, each person off each other and say, oh, well, it's their fault or their fault. How about that? Fair for everybody or fair for nobody? At least give us a chance. Give us a chance. You're not even doing that.
Yeah, this right is wrong.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I know it's not my meeting, but I want to respond a bit. When I refer to boots on the ground, I mean people here in Kenai that work for the Fish and Game that are making those decisions as far as seeing what's happening, and not necessarily somebody sitting in Juneau saying this should be an opener or a closure. So if I misspoke, I apologize. But I'm talking about our people we listen to that advise us as far as, and us doesn't involve me, but it involves the department on what you're saying. But I understand your point. Yeah.
Thanks a lot for coming down, Governor. Just wanted to echo something that Steve and Paul said about the linkage or potential linkage with what's happening in the Casio-Off, and it seems to be perking along every year at the same level. Yet the Kenai now, after many, many years, over a decade of very high level or over escapements, we're wondering now if that's come home to roost, that now the returning responder, or the yield now is going down and down and down into the Kenai. I think it bears scrutiny, and I think the department really needs to take a hard look at that. Something in the vein like that Chris was talking about. The levels keep going higher and higher and higher on the escapements. The user groups want density. They want a lot of fish in the river. Pulses, as our friends in the sport fishery would say, pulses up the river. And they catch so many of those. It's almost like they want to guarantee. The net result of that is we put all these fish in the river, and it's foregone harvest. And so I'd like the department, maybe perhaps direction from you or Commissioner Cotten, to take a look at that. A couple of things now that we're in this building in particular, related to the dipnet fishery. It can't keep growing exponentially in the mouth of the Kenai. All of us suffer in the commercial fishery, particularly those, or at least we feel that way, in the upper beaches who don't get to fish sometimes until as the very last user group of all of everybody. Pick a user group for the last one to get fish. Would the department or the governor's office be in favor of aquaculturing a run into the northern inlet, say, at Clutna somewhere, that would take some of the pressure off of this fishery, and it would help all the user groups? Folks could go closer to Anchorage if it's just a meat fishery, and that's what this is supposed to be. It's not Arctic Man on steroids. It's supposed to be a meat fishery. Let's try to do something practical, pragmatic, and solve some of those issues. And the other thing is we all put 2% into this building, and the people here can't do their job. We can't get aquaculture runs into the areas that we used to have that benefited all the user groups. And it would be great if we could cut through the red tape, perhaps work with the federal government, and finally let this organization enhance some of the rivers that would work, again, for all user groups. Right now, we're just handcuffed, and it's particularly frustrating for all of us. There's some solution in that, and if we could work together to make that happen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and thanks a lot again for coming back.
Thanks. Let me just respond to Ken for a second. My Valdez background, I'm very familiar with Valdez VFDA, Valdez Fisheries Development Association, and also FISWAC out of Cordova as far as on the hatchery. My wife's that fishery in Valdez go pretty low until it brought it back. Now we're hearing some pushback on the hatchery. The additional 200,000, 20 million eggs that UFDA has asked to be able to harvest this year will push back pretty significantly. So that's the first time I have even heard any sort of pushback on hatchery auctions. I was actually a bit confused. Why aren't we seeing more of those opportunities here? So I think that should be looked at. I think there's some question about on science, and that should be looked at as well. But you know, science is great. We got to have it, but sometimes practical common sense has to somehow fit into the equation as well. Maybe not equal to science and big believer in science, but there has to be some common sense that applied as well. So I think you have some good suggestions. Thank you. And do you want to?
I just put an exclamation point behind what you just said. I mean, Alaska's had a lot of success with aquaculture. I spent many years in this room as a member of the board of directors of Cook and gained a real appreciation for the professional approach and the outstanding ability to succeed in that field. So, but as the governor mentions, there's more than one opinion about the benefits and the of hatchery production. So we're seeing that as well. But I think an intelligent approach is worth exploring, Mr. Coleman, and this organization is one of the best. So.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Matt Hawkinson. I'm a third generation Cook Inlet fisherman. I'm currently the fleet manager for Inlet Fish Producers. There are a couple issues I'd like to address, and I think I'd like to summarize it, I think, with a question, since we were told to ask questions. So a couple of things have been addressed already, and there were some numbers quoted for the personal use fishery. I did look this up earlier. So what's been reported to Fish and Game for the personal use harvest in Kenai, the dip netters have harvested 339,000 sockeye for the last 10-year average. 339,000 per year is the actual sockeye dip net harvest, as reported to Fish and Game and available on their website. That has been a concern to me. I'm going to quote here from Title 5 of the Alaska Administrative Code 21-360. Of course, it first says that the late-run sockeye salmon will be managed primarily for commercial uses. And it goes on to say in B that the late-run sockeye salmon commercial, sport, and personal use fisheries shall be managed to, 1, meet the sustainable escapement goal, which has been quoted at 700,000 to 1.2 million, and also to achieve the in-river goals, which are higher. This year, with the reduced prediction, is at 900,000 to 1.1 million. What we've seen, and as was quoted in the closure of the dip net fishery, was they were trying to manage that for the lower sustainable escapement goal, and they ignored that when they shut down the commercial fishery, that they were supposed to manage for the in-river goal. So I do think that, as Nick said, there should be some fairness, especially as in the first sentence it says that this should be managed primarily for commercial uses. To give another sector priority and allow them to fish while the commercial is shut down doesn't make sense. And maybe it is political, because there are tens of thousands of personal use fishermen who vote, well, maybe thousands of commercial fishermen, but we feed hundreds of thousands of people and support an important part of the economy. The other point that's been brought up already that I wanted to reiterate is that, let's make it Kenai specific, since 2011, we've exceeded 1.3 million in the river. We've exceeded the upper end of the escapement goal every year since 2011, which I do believe, as others have stated here, has contributed to this year's low run. My question is then, the management is quite clear. It seems as though the managers have not been managing according to the plan in black and white. The sport management has not closed down the dip net fishery, while the in-river goals are not being met. And I'm sorry, excuse me, a little hard. I don't like speaking in public. So my question is, what will we do? What will you do? I appreciate your sentiment that it shouldn't be managed from the third floor, but I think that we do need leadership. And I think that if our goals aren't being met, if escapement goals are being exceeded and the run is suffering because of it, or if escapement goals aren't being met while other user groups are fishing, what do we do for the managers who have created these problems?
That's an excellent question. and there's no easy answer to it. As you mentioned, the CLOP is no exception, have in the past exceeded escapement goals, and it's not on purpose, but so obviously we could do a better job, and we're doing the best we can. We have professionals. We are managing according to a plan that often gives conflicting direction. As you know, as you pointed out, 360 says this is primarily to be managed for commercial uses, but it gives us a 900,000 in-river goal. And that means that we're with the 700,000 sustainable escapement goal. So the management plan isn't always consistent, and we don't want to go over, we don't want to go under. This year it's going to be a little different story because the editors are contributing to us going under, and when we go over, they're not pointed to as a culprit, but it's a difficult question. Our management effort is to stay within the range of the escapement goals. We don't always do it.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm just doing this out of expediency. This guy, we're going to go over there, the guy in the sunglasses, he's been very patient. This side of the room hasn't gotten a shot yet. Okay, go ahead.
I don't need a mic.
Well, he's got the mic.
That's okay, you can go.
Okay, go ahead.
I've got a yellow there and 2 permits. I don't owe anybody for my stuff. I'm gonna live. I'm gonna survive. I've got young people in my group that have loans out, and they have state loans. I would love to see you forgive those loans for this year. They can pay them up when they make some money. But we gotta fix this, without a doubt. And as for what we can do, managers don't follow that plan. They need to be held accountable. Exactly. That's what when we got Phil on the beach, if we're not making numbers, fire his ass.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I talked to you on the phone and I respect you. You too, Governor.
Thank you very much, Governor, and Commissioner, for being here today. My name is Vasily Yakunin. I'm a second-generation commercial fisherman in the Cook Inlet. I have a question for you, Commissioner Cotten. I was wondering, since we've already recognized that it's a late run salmon, sockeye salmon run in the Kenai. I was wondering if we'd be able to just extend the time that the sonar is in the water, so we can constantly have a good monitoring of the run. And then also I have a question for you, Governor. I was wondering, a lot of people are saying that people with loans, the younger generation with the loans, like myself and my little brother, if the state can't help, maybe we can get our wonderful president to help.
Could I make just a real quick comment? There is a process that allows for loan deferrals, and we've already had this conversation with Commissioner Navarre, who you're probably very familiar with, who now leads the Department of Commerce, and that's where those loan programs are located. This came up with the Chignik folks as well, so there's an established process to address that. It's not a guarantee that we're going to say your loan is automatically deferred, but there is a process. I suspect it's going to get tested here.
Governor Walker, Commissioner Cotten, thanks a lot for being here for us. Appreciate that. I have a suggestion. I'm Brent Johnson, longtime senator, Doug Blossom's brother-in-law, by the way. So the Department of Fish and Game had a smolt project in the Kenai River, and they had finally gotten good at it. So the smolt project lets us know the number of smolt that are going out each year and gives us a look at them. Because of budget cuts a number of years ago, that project was ceased. And if we had that, then we would know a piece of information that we don't have without it. And that is how many smolt are going out each year. And that gives us an idea of what's happening each year, gives us an anticipation. Right now it's a guessing game, you know. All over the state we have runs failing and, you know, some succeeding in other places. But if we had that piece of information, and it costs about $50,000, so it's, you know, a little chunk of change, but something that's very doable, And I think that that's an important piece of information to have, and I suggest that we go back to funding them. We've been doing it, by the way, through cooking and aquaculture's help and participation in the Cotten River. So we have a smoke project there that's ongoing. We've only missed a couple of years running that one. But the one in the Kenai River, that's the most productive system, and it should have a smoke out migration count every year. Thank you.
Do you need a mic?
I don't think so.
Speak up.
My name's Brad. I'm a commercial drift netter here for 15 years. And it seems like the objectives for the industry are to lower escapement and get the user groups on a more equal footing. From your position in the governor's office, can you tell us something tangible that we can do as an industry or individually to try to propel things in this direction? Because besides coming to this meeting is great, we all appreciate you coming here. To me personally, it feels like a lot of pissing in the wind. And I want to know if there's something that you could direct us, tangible, concrete, that we can do to try to achieve our objectives.
Well, you know, I learned long ago not to try to do something that's going to elicit a round of applause for me. I haven't gotten a lot of round of applause, and because I don't have that, that's not what I do. But I do listen closely. We have people here taking notes, getting names of who has what suggestions. I've heard some things, Brent comment about, I've always been worried about the data we don't have, the data that, do we have the best data in the world? We have the greatest fishery in the world, we have the best data in the world. I'm not convinced we are. I don't know enough to be critical, but I listen closely when I hear those suggestions. The suggestions about the loan forgiveness, as far as, you know, pushing that. So I'm here to not give some sort of a profound edict or promise. I promised to show up, and I did, and I promised to listen, which I am, and I promised to get back to you, which I will. And that's really the most I can do here as governor. And rather than I can't wave a wand and say, here's what we're going to do from this point forward. I don't have that authority, and I do rely upon input from you as well as from our staff to come up with the best solution on the long term. You need to get through this season. We're going to figure out how we can help on that, and then figure out a long-term solution. So I apologize if you are hoping for some sort of an edict out of me. I'm not made that way. I'm looking for the solution. I know it's me on my own cannot come up with a solution that is good for this fishery, and that's really what we need to do, is look what's good for the fishery, not necessarily the person standing here or the person standing here. So thank you for your input. I'm sorry I can't give you a hard deliverable today, other than the fact that we will take what we have heard. Some of what we've heard we can act on pretty quickly. Some is longer term. Is the escapement the right number? There are people here that have had more experience on that river than anybody that will ever have. So we will. I wish I had something I could pull out and say this is going to fix everything. I don't have that, but I know that I know the people that can help make that happen. And that's not the answer you want. I realize that, but I refuse to try to make something up so it sounds really good on a sound bite. And there's no way I can deliver on it. I deliver what I commit to do, and we will do that.
Okay, Gary Cooper.
Could I just say that I think that the governor did describe something that's tangible, and that the government will now again officially offer to work with, in whatever fashion, Cotten Agriculture, UCEDA, KPFA, like to get together and do a workshop, a symposium on escapement goals. It sounds like that's a common theme here, that a lot of people feel that our escapement goals are all wrong or they're politically motivated. I can tell you they're not politically motivated. We have a this administration manipulate interest groups.
Stuff that our food industry
is wrong. The offer is we'll make a formal arrangement to have a scientific examination of the escapement goals and work with you on that. It's an important question.
Yes. Okay. So Gary Cooper back here. We've got one guy here, and then Gary Hollier. Okay.
Hello, Sam. How was your ping pong game? Right here. Sam, over here. Gary Cooper.
Well, the last time I played ping pong was with the head of the Russian delegation that we work with, and I need a little more practice, I think.
I remember playing ping pong with you in the 70s. But anyway, my name is Gary Cooper. My great-grandfather found Cooper's Landing. I grew up in the Nilchik. My father was a cook and a drift fisherman for over 50 years. I have fished the same sites at Humpy Point since 1958. Thank you, Governor, for coming. Thank you for listening. I'm not a biologist, but I have some knowledge, and it's from what I've seen, not what I've been told. And I thank you for saying that we'll put some effort into not managing this politically, but biologically, but I'll believe it when I see it. Thank you.
My name is Steve Annick. I've drifted here in the inlet for 52, 3, 4 years, whatever. 52. And I want to talk about something that Paul Shigura brought up here before, and that is that Alaska Supreme Court said in a case, I think bears my name, that the commissioner has the authority to EO authority, emergency order authority, anytime he wants to use it. Now, Pat Shields has come up at our UC meeting and said, well, we can only use EO authority to go outside the plan if there's new evidence that was never brought up before. Well, that's not what the Alaska Supreme Court said. They didn't put any caveats on it like that. I don't know where that caveat came from. But you, Commissioner, can go outside of the plan as you will, because the Alaska Supreme Court says you have the authority to do that in that court case. Now, then the question is, what about the rest of the season? There's a large run of silvers out there. There's a large run of dogs out there that we can harvest them if you go outside of the plan and use your EO authority to allow us to go catch those dogs and silvers and pinks. The plan doesn't allow us to do that. It's a phony plan on the pinks. The plan says you can go fish pinks where there aren't any pinks. And that's how the plan is set up. But you, Commissioner, have the EO authority to go outside of that plan. If there's a large run of chums and silvers and pinks, then let us catch them here in August.
Please.
Right on, please.
Gary Hollier's next. Gary's had his hand up. Pass it back.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. Gary Hollier, sitting right on North Bay Beach. A couple comments. We can actually have an ally with this dip net fishery. These guys want to come down and catch a bunch in a quick way. When we get a less than 2-to-1 spawn and return ratio on the Kenai River, that really hurts the commercial fishermen and the dip netters. There's one way to this dip net fishery is not going away. They need to be monitored. And Representative Lancaster in 1998, Joe Malatesta knows this, by putting a $10 tax on dip net fishery. He lost, he quit, he got out of there. There's 3 accesses, South Beach, North Beach, and the docks, and going up the river. For $10, the abuse is rampant. Okay, you check a guy in, you check him out, and they're done. That's one solution. The statewide harvest, the statewide average is 4 to 6 to 1 spawn and return ratio. Kenai River is less than 2 to 1. That's kind of my generic comments, but specifically genetics when it comes to Commissioner Cotten. What's the chances again when you do these genetics? There's been a 600-foot fishery on North Bay Beach. We need some genetic data, not in December. We need it now. And I think it's a budget thing when you talk to these people doing this genetics and all across Cook Inlet. This is kind of the hot spot for the state. So is there a chance that we could get, when they do these genetic samples, to get them highball, fast track, to see who's catching what and when and where? Thank you.
I guess that was a question. I'd be glad to explore that. Yes, I'd be glad to explore that. There's some complexities to doing the genetic studies, as you well know, but I'll be happy to discuss it with you further and wouldn't rule it out. But that's the best I can do for the moment.
Okay, I know there are questions out there, but the governor had 1 hour. I want to give him a moment to close this up, and I also want to remind everybody.
We're good. We're good. We're taking a break. I don't want to leave here with the hands in the air.
Thanks for giving me the time. Thanks for being here today. My name is John McCombs. I've been director here for over 4 decades. I guess one of the obvious things, one comment I want to make, and I'll go out on a limb and say that I think that the dip net fishery, it's unlimited and it's unsustainable, and I don't think it can go on the way it has been. The other thing that I have to question the department about, I just don't understand how we got to the point where there's 6 or 7 derbies on cohos when they haven't been, they've never been quantified. Nobody's bothered to quantify those stocks. And now they have 6, they shifted the focus off the king salmon, and now they got 6 or 7 derbies. Who authorizes those 6 or 7 derbies on cohos when they don't know how many are coming back? We're sitting on the beach. There's lots of cohos this year. There's been lots of cohos a lot of years, and we should have been able to fish. The problem is, and this doesn't go reported, but you got to realize that in those coho derbies, they're still catching and releasing, spawning king salmon in the late run, and that's a problem. And these are 2 points that haven't been made.
Hi there, Marty Weiser with Copper River Seafoods. Appreciate you coming down here. It's been really great, and mostly why I came was to hear from the fishermen. But I also think it's important to recognize that it's not just a fishing problem, it's an economic problem in general. You've got everything from petroleum suppliers. It really affects the entire community, and not just, well, you know, fishermen are our heart of our operation. We certainly want to make sure they're taken care of, but it really is a community-wide issue, the lack of fish this year. So keep that in mind.
Hello, Governor and Commissioner Cotten. My name is Jesse Bjorkman. I've been in the fishery for about 7 years, but I've learned a lot in my time here. Thank you, Legislator Seaton, for being here, and other candidates. Senator Machicki sends his regards and was planning to be here along with Wayne Ogle, but had pre-commitments in Seward. I think the most important thing that the department can do right now, Governor and Commissioner, is to share information about what maximum sustainable yield looks like in the Kenai River. The numbers that we've heard talked about here are very important. That data is very important, and the department and the state has that data right now. And we need to educate people. We need to educate the people in this room so that when we're talking to our friends and neighbors, we have good data, and we're right. And so they can't just brush us off and say, well, they don't know what they're talking about. We need to have good numbers. We need to have good numbers to the public as well. You know, it's unfortunate that Ray DeBartoleben and other Kenai River Sport Fishing Association people that were here just left. But they have not been sharing good information with our community and our public. They have a vested interest in sharing information that's not true. So what the department can do right now is start gathering good data about what maximum sustainable yield looks like in Cook Inlet and sharing that with the public. I think that's a really important thing to do. Because yes, we do make all user groups our allies when we can show them what maximum sustainable yield looks like, what returns look like when we have a return that's managed appropriately so that we avoid crashes. I think that's very important, Governor. Commissioner Cotten, you heard the governor say that he doesn't want these fisheries to be managed from the executive. When you closed the drift fishery down last week on Thursday, was that a decision that was made by local managers here, or was that a political decision made by someone else?
The whole term political decision is probably misused. The Department
Sam, did you make the decision? Did you make the decision?
I end up, the buck stops here, as they say. That decision was recommended by our commercial fishery.
You can cut it out. We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
It was recommended by the Commercial Fisheries Division. The escapement goals were in jeopardy, and I think we'll can about what escapement goals are properly measured, but that's how we're supposed to manage. We're supposed to ensure that we achieve escapement goals. The Division of Commercial Fisheries announced that they didn't think that was going to happen, therefore we had to restrict the commercial fishery. That's not a political decision. It's a conservation decision.
Then why did you let the dip netters keep fishing?
Yeah.
Why?
Bottom line.
You told us you're
Hold on a second. Let's take we got to keep this in order.
Because
answer that question.
Stay civil. It's a tough decision. They're managed to a different standard. They're required to observe the 700,000. The commercial fleet has a 900,000 in-river goal that they have to subscribe to. It's a difficult logistical situation with the dip netters. There's nothing in the management plan that tells us how to do that. I think we have learned something this year. We did close it the last 2 days, and it's suggested to me that was a political decision. It's going to contribute to achieving our escapement goal. Other people, like I say, I have people in your industry tell me don't close them down because that will jeopardize their ability to get back in the water. So it was not an easy decision. I would hope that the Fish Board will address that in the next cycle.
Karen McGann, my husband's been fishing for 60 years. I've only been married to him for 53. But we are 3 generations on Salamana Beach. And I am going to form this into a form of a question. Did my mic stay on? I'm going to form it into a question. Of course, the dip netters are still dip netting. This is a weekend. If this wasn't a political decision, they wouldn't be still dip netting this weekend. The sports fishing change to one sockeye is on Monday. Another weekend. We're all out of the water. So that's just a statement. On Salamana Beach, we were closed before our season started. Somehow they knew that this was going to be bad, right? We have fished 3 days. We were closed to regular periods and are fishing by emergency order only the whole season. My question to you, if you sincerely want it to not be political, don't just go through the counts, go through the regulations. There's nothing scientific about what the sport industry got in, the sport commercial industry got in, as paired restrictions. There's nothing scientific in those paired restrictions. If they were truly paired restrictions, when we're shut down to regular periods, so would everyone else be. When we're shut to 2 days a week, 12 hours a period, so would the in-river commercial fishery. It's a commercial fishery. They're not truly paired restrictions. They're only paired restrictions that they want in and have got through the proposal. So let's get to the root of the problem. We elected you, Governor, and I'm very proud of you in a lot of ways, and I thank you for being here. You're an elected official. The elected official should have more authority than the appointed Board of Fish or any appointed people. We didn't elect any of them. Maybe we need to get to the root of the problem and throw the whole board out, go through those regulations and see what is political, and put a scientific board in. They might have biases too, but something's got to change, and it has to change from the root of the problem, not from the top. I mean, not a little bit at a time. So I hope you could look into that. If you can go through the regulations, you can have someone go through and look at everything that is political in there. It's taken years for them to get to where they are, but it's political management for sure. I'd appreciate that, Governor.
jumper.
My name's Jeff Doan. Thank you for coming, Governor, and thank you, Representative Seaton, for being here today. I'll try to cover a lot of ground quickly, if time permits here. I put a petition into the Board of Fish on the 17th requesting that some reasonable measure of foregone harvest would not be foregone under an emergency. We wouldn't be in this position today, and ongoing, continuous, on loss of foregone surplus harvest in the Casilla system, which has overescaped past its upper end goal for 10 of the last 10 years. We've foregone 1.5 million surplus sockeye just in the last 10 years alone, 19 out of the last 20. We talked about recruitment. That's our basis of recruitment. The BE has a BEG for its managed for maximum sustained yield, and yet we're getting these lousy recruitments because of a management issue. And then we have this conflict in regulations, i.e. we have our exploitation on these large kings that are extremely small in a 12-hour opening, 4 to 10 at best. Well, one large king salmon is not worth 1,000 reds or 200,000 sockeye, and you've got 3,000 fishermen that are being impacted with their crew, and for today, Sport Fish projects 16,220 escapement on large king salmon in the Kenai River. Well, the plan says 13,500 projected above. We're released from that card. We started out in the beginning on June 22nd on early run comparison. I received no data and information request. Where's the correlation data? I received none, Governor. To show that there was a correlation. Everybody's been doing 48 hours per week in the fishery based on an early run relationship of early run king salmon to late run. There's no data that supports that correlation. I wasn't given it.
Make a question.
My question is, my point is, they have the release card now. It's called adaptive. Alaska was very successful for decades, since statehood, based on adaptive fisheries management. And these regulations do not make sense. The commissioner, under the commissioner's authority, the whole department operates under the commissioner's authority, maintain, sustain, and develop salmon stocks and the best utilization of those fishery resources for the greatest economic value. Now, my point being is, does one large king salmon that they've already projected to meet the goal preclude me or thousands of fishermen from commercial fishing who depend on this resource for not fishing in a reasonable manner per week to be released at this point in time? We don't know what all these runs are till the end of the season on what run timing is on these stocks. I understand that, but we need to maintain all salmon stocks. It doesn't say king salmon stocks in the constitutional authority delegated to the commissioner. We're asking. So that's my question. Can we get back to some reasonable adaptive management measures? And if we have conflict in regulations, it's the Department of Fish and Game's responsibility and the Board of Fisheries, they were appointed by you.